Today I'm working on this little Chinese quad. I'm going to be changing out the head. It's got a leaky valve, and I'm going to put a new cylinder with a new piston. It's smoking and using oil, but I got the body off. I got all the zip ties off the wires. There's a few of them that are going to unplug from the motor that go to the starter and the magneto. And you've got pretty much just two bolts, one here in the back and one up here on the top that hold this motor on there. Let me go ahead and get all that off. I'll get this over there on the bench. We'll tear it apart, put all these new parts back on it, and put it back in here and see how it runs. Okay, with the motor up on the bench, first thing we can do is take the starter off of it. You should already have this power cord that goes to it disconnected on the other side. You'll have to in order to pull this thing out. The reason why you got to take it out is because you won't be able to pull the head off of it with it on there. It'll block it. There we go. Okay, now while we're on this side of it, we want to take a number 10 and unscrew this. This is going to take the cover off the other side to get us to the timing gear. Just held on there like that. A long screw goes through there. You don't have to mess with anything else here. We're going to take these two little caps out. Use a number 16 socket and turn the crank until you see the T with the line going straight through the top and get it at top dead center. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, now we're going to take a number 8 and we're going to take this gear off of there. We want to keep the crankshaft from turning, so we're going to put our ratchet on there and break these loose. And then we're going to pop our gear off of there. Get something with a lip on it. Get behind it and just pull the gear off. Unwrap your chain from it. The chain's going to fall down in there, but that's okay. For right now, we're not worried about it. And next, we have this screw here, and these 4 here we want to take off, these 4 nuts. And there's another number 8 right down here that holds the head on. I'm going to go ahead and take that one off too right now, since I've got it in my hand. There's a nut and a washer. Make sure you don't lose that washer. It's important for tightening this head down. Now we can pull the head off of it. Guide pins on here, if they happen to fall out, that's where they go. There's a lot of little parts and seals around that head gasket. So take pictures or notes, have a good diagram of where everything goes when you put it back together. On the side of the cylinder block, there's a number 8 bolt that holds the idler gear for the chain. Use something with a hook on the end, like this pick, to hold that gear and help you pull it out when you remove that bolt. Grab hold of the cylinder block and pull it off. The piston will slide out of the bottom and remain connected to the engine. Remove one of the clips off of one side of the piston. Be careful taking them out, they'll shoot across the garage like a bullet. From the opposite side, using a screwdriver or a punch, push the wrist pin out and remove the piston. We're ready to put our new parts on it. Even though your parts are new, it's always a good idea to clean them. Soap and water usually works just fine. There's always a little piece of metal somewhere hidden in those parts. You don't want it inside your engine. The cylinder's already honed, so I don't have to worry about that. Before you ever install rings in a cylinder, you want to check the gap. If you wanted to get technical, you could use a piston to push this ring down there. I'm just using my fingers and I'm going to push it down there and get it even. There's about a 15 thousandths gap on this one, as you can see, and that's okay. Okay, now we want to address the rings and the piston. On this particular set, the rings kind of look pretty much the same. There's no markings for top or the bottom. You got your compression and your scraper ring. And one way that you can distinguish the two of them is that the second ring almost always has a bigger gap than the top rings. So looking at these real close, you can see the difference between what the gap is going to be in the two. And then when I measured them inside the cylinder, I came up with a couple different sizes too. So it tells me that this is my scraper ring, this is my compression ring, this is going to go on top, this goes down below it. So I've marked the top of the piston where my gaps are going to be on each particular ring. The wrist pin goes across this way. Number 2 gap's going to be up here. Number 1 gap down here. The top of my oil ring gap is going to be here. The bottom is there. And then this space between here, which is like 5 and 7 o'clock, this ring can be anywhere in between that. When you're installing the rings on your piston, start with the oil ring first. There's 3 pieces. Put your center one in. Put one of the steel ones from the top of the piston down to the top of that one, and the other steel ring from the bottom of the piston up to the bottom of that center ring. Be careful that you don't bend them. They'll bend very easy. The 2 top ones, they'll break. So be careful when you're putting these things on there. The piston has to go in first. On the piston, you'll see at the top where it says in, that indicates the intake, which is up on the top of this motor. And we'll just slide that down there, line it up. I got the wrist pin here. I've got the clip already on this other side, and just eyeball it, and it should slide in that easy. So all I have to do is put the clip on the other side, and then we can set the cylinder head down on it. Okay, the top, or actually the bottom of the cylinder, it's going to slide on first, is grooved. As you're pushing down, it's going to compress the rings for you, so you don't need a ring compressor for this. You got your new gasket. Got my little rubber gasket that goes down here installed. I just used a little bit of oil on the inside of the cylinder wall. As I'm pushing down on the cylinder head, I've got my fingers pushing in on the rings so I can get them inside of that V groove. Then I could push it down to the next ring, push that one in, and so on and so on. Take your time doing this. You can break those rings forcing it down on there. And there it goes. And it goes in pretty tight. So if you got one of these come in handy. I'm gonna reach down there and grab the chain and pull it through. Make sure my gasket's still in place down there. That little rubber O-ring thing. I'll make sure I didn't bump that out. Okay, I want to put this in there. Okay, I got it on there. This is the bolt that I just installed for the little idler wheel. I'm going to go ahead and put this one in so this doesn't come back up on us. That was our number 8. And just snug it down for right now. Just be sure that when you go back you tighten everything up. I'm going to bring it back to top dead center. And hold your chain out when you're doing that so it don't jam up. And turn it in a counterclockwise rotation. We're ready to put the head on it. This only fits one way. We'll put that down there like that. Got our little rubber gasket that goes there. We had our little hat thing that goes down in here. Our pins are in place. I'm going to wipe the oil off of this thing. Looks like it dribbled some. We'll slide this down on there now. Do a little jiggle. I've got it seated. I'm going to hook this thing so I don't lose it down in there. I'm going to go ahead and put the timing gear back on it. A lot of times when I'm making videos, I kind of get lost in what I'm doing and miss things. And what I missed here was the head that I'm putting on it. It's a brand new head. I checked the valve clearance on it and it looked like they did it at the factory, but it checked out okay. I put the caps back on it. And at this point, it's ready to be installed on the engine and torqued down. You can do the same thing if you've got a used one. You can check the valves on the bench, put it on the engine, torque it down, and then move on to the timing chain. In the next part, you'll see that I got ahead of myself and I didn't torque the head down. It doesn't cause any problems in what I'm doing. Camshafts will usually have a unique set of bolt holes that are offset and will only bolt to the camshaft one way. The only thing we're doing right now is timing this gear with the gear that's connected to the crankshaft. It should be at top dead center. With my mark at the bottom at top dead center, what I'm doing right now is putting the chain around the gear and trying to get that dot at the top of the gear as close to that black mark as I possibly can. Stretching it out, I can see that I'm like 1 tooth off, so I need to move that chain to move that dot back 1 tooth. With that pick, I can just lift the chain and kind of roll it around the gear to move it that 1 tooth. Now that I've got my dot lined up with my line, I can take a screwdriver and lift up on that gear and stretch the chain and get it around that shaft. Unlike all the other videos that you may have already seen about timing these engines, you'll see that my bolt holes aren't lined up with the cam. I did this on purpose and flopped the cam around to where they wouldn't line up to prove a point. To try to line up the gears and the bolt holes at the same time is unnecessary, and you're just creating a lot of work for yourself. This would be the same procedure that they use in the factory. With a socket and a ratchet on your crankshaft bolt, turn the crankshaft counterclockwise until you line your bolt holes up. Install your bolts, torque them down, and you're finished. To check your work, continue turning the crankshaft until you get 180 degrees away from your original mark. You should be at top dead center. Continue turning till you get to the original mark, and you'll see again you're at top dead center. Because there's only one way to bolt the gear to the cam, there's no way you can mess up. The torque for those bolts are 6 foot-pounds or 72 inch-pounds or 8.14 Newton meters. This little bolt here would be the same, but I think it's an 8mm socket. Don't forget those washers when you're bolting this head down. Those acorn caps will bottom out before they even touch the head without them. The head torques at 16 foot-pounds or 192 inch-pounds or 21.69 Newton meters. When installing this cap, be very, very careful they break easy. Tighten it down finger tight till you can no longer turn the cap with your hand. With your ratchet, turn it maybe a quarter of a turn more, turning it a little bit at a time, and that should be plenty. Install the starter, all those little caps, your carburetor, and any other leftover engine parts. This thing's ready to go back on the bike. If you made it this far in my video, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some good information out of it. If you did, hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel. I got a lot of videos up there. I got a lot more coming. Ring the notification bell and you'll get notified as soon as I put them up. Always remember that these quad runners are very dangerous. Wear a helmet and all the safety equipment that you can. Make sure your safety devices are hooked up, working properly, and have fun. Thanks for watching.